Find yourself a booth, order up a cold one. This is the Spring Bar.
Hey everybody, welcome to Spring Bar. Glad to have you here. I am Florida Mike. Today, joined by all of my co-hosts, Joe and the OC, Casey, and JP. Gentlemen, how are we all doing today?
Awesome.
Real good.
I mean, look at how. I mean, obviously, I'm on top of my game, baby.
We are all in theme today for today's episode, which if you've
suited and booted,
read the tagline already, you know that we're talking Bond watches. So we all came dressed in our best to impress. Exactly. Exactly, JP.
And honestly, I don't know how much experience you guys have with handling explosives, but if you're not wearing something like this, they tend to not go off.
Is that true? In your professional opinion, your experience?
I feel like yes. So this will increase your odds of not having a malfunction by 50%. But as long as you're wearing camouflage, you're about at 90%. But if there's something wrong, you go find the youngest, lowest ranking guy and have him go poke with the stick.
Does he need to adjust his tie?
Yes.
If you're wearing the outfit that you're wearing, you also get the girl.
Oh yeah, there you go. Wait,
that's really the most important part.
Wait, I thought the uniform was to skip the line at the AD.
That too.
Yeah, that too. Hey, come on, Bond doesn't have to wait for an AD.
Exactly. Freaking Rolex and Omega, specifically Omega, I guess, goes straight to Bond.
Yeah, he's just got to wait for Q.
Yeah.
That's all. All right, so new watches. I feel like I'm introducing myself and JP here because the way I understand it, Joe is preoccupied with something else right now, and Casey doesn't have anything new because he already discussed everything new last episode.
Yeah, and I'm kind of broke.
And I didn't have anything new last episode, but I'm making up for it now.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but we'll let JP go first because
I got bupkis.
Because JP's our guest host. So JP, what do you got that's new that you want to discuss today?
Well, thank you. And first of all, let me thank you guys for having me back. Am I your first repeat offender? Wait, that's not the right term. There's going to be a better phrase for that. But
absolutely correct.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, it's
episode 22, the return of JP.
Yeah.
I'm getting my revenge.
This time he's pissed.
So this isn't super new, but I've been slowing down my collecting streak a little bit. So this is actually one, if anybody's following my Instagram feed, they might have seen a while back. It's one I had the pleasure to review for the Time Bum. And it's this. Let me see if I can get it out of the light a little bit. I'll shade it so you can see the dial.
There you go.
It's the Galvin Loimu. It's made by Susan Galvin,
wait, say it again?
Out of Loimu, I believe is the pronunciation.
Loimu?
It's Finnish, and I think it translates roughly to blaze, and it's for the Northern Lights.
I was dealing with trying to translate some stuff off of a Finnish auction site, and Google can't do it. It doesn't work. God bless the Finns, but
it's a complex language. Yeah, so I've probably pronounced it wrong, and she's going to message me and tell me that I did.
I was just going to say, you're going to get another message because last time you were on, you pronounced McGrady wrong, they let you know of it.
A bunch of people let me know of it because folks on the internet are very polite. Actually, they were really nice about it. And yes, McGrady is a fantastic brand, and so is the Galvin Watch Company. Actually, they're neighbors. So McGrady is out of New Zealand, and Galvin is out of Australia. And so she had sent me a couple to review, and I liked it so much that I had to buy it. So for anybody that didn't see it, it's a sport watch, pretty basic 3-hander with a date, and it's got a really fun guilloche pattern on the dial that's supposed to mimic sort of the Northern Lights, because Susan Galvin, though living in Australia, is from Finland originally. And really just, cool, really nice relationship with her. She sends me like a nice handwritten note with the watch. It's just a very cool relationship. And it's one of the things that makes me love the micro brand world so much. So that's the newest piece. I've had it now for a couple months, I think. And I just can't get enough of it. So
wow.
What about you, Mike?
That's significantly slowing down on the collecting. As I've had it for a couple of months, and that's your newest piece. Are you okay? Are you taking injections? I mean, is it like are the meetings working?
I'm in recovery. Yeah, that's basically it. Yeah.
All right. So, like I said, I'm making up for it from last episode. I had nothing. For those keen listeners, I think we discussed on air that I was going to purchase something from you, Joe. And at the end of the recording last episode, that transaction did happen. So it's not necessarily new as we had discussed this before. However, it is new to me since we last recorded. I am talking the Bull of a Braille watch.
Kind of new. I mean, it actually came to you. So
It came to
I never
me.
actually had possession of said transactional.
No, not necessarily. And the whole reason why this went down is because this watch you had purchased because you were going to gut it and use the movement. In your other one, which we've already come to realize was not going to work.
Won't work.
Okay, it was proven, even though you didn't want to listen to me. We had to go to Japan to get proof.
Did you enjoy the bottle of wine? Shut up.
We'll get to that in a minute. But it is in amazing, all original condition. Everything works. It pops open.
Except for that big scratch around the dial.
Hold on. You got to listen to this. Make that nice, satisfying little pop when you open it. But it has I'm trying to, again, with the light here. Where do we go? There it goes. You can kind of see the little scratch from the minute hand, but that's what makes it cool because this watch was used for its intended purpose. You can see the fingerprints on the dial and everything. It just adds to the story. It needs to be kept exactly as it is. So that's why I bought it from you, because I didn't want it to be taken apart. Watch number 2. This was a gift from friend of the show, Oliver at Watches with
That's
Oliver.
Right. I forgot about this one.
He sent me what year is this one? This is a 1977 Caravelle transistorized.
Mm-hmm.
Sent him the one that I have to get fixed. He fixed it, sent it back. It runs great, looks good. And then a few days later, this comes in the mail, totally unexpected. Did not tell me it was coming, with a nice little letter. And this thing is just beautiful. It's a plated case, but there's no scratches on it. The dial is wonderful. The hands are great. I mean, all the markers. You put it on a nice tan leather strap to match. This thing is phenomenal. I love wearing this one. It's a great size too. It's a nice larger size for something from the late 70s.
The Caravelle, those transistorized watches always tend to run just a little bit small. They wear really, really great, but they're not big. Mm-hmm. And like you've got a really good size on that one. So,
and I think you had mentioned before, because Oliver did something similar, gave you a watch as well. And you had told me one time that they're kind of they follow like Grand Quartz, King Seiko type lines.
Yeah,
the finishing is not there, but the lines definitely, you can.
I've got the hooded lugs on mine, so like it's a different profile, but yeah, there's a real Seiko quality to some of the design language that they're running. Like you can tell they were paying attention to what was going on in the market, and particularly since those were mostly citizen movements, right? Even though some of them are Swiss, it's still citizen.
So this one is the Swiss. And that's why he sent me this one, I think, was because the one that I sent him was the citizen version. He said they're not as reliable as what the Swiss ones are. So he sent me this one along.
Also it's because Oliver is the only one who seems to be able to work on these suckers at all. They're like anybody else takes a look at it and it's like, oh no.
He sent pictures of his Caravelle graveyard, as he calls it, and then the cases and the parts and the electronics. I mean, he's just got stuff everywhere. It's a fantastic picture of just stuff, and he pieces it all together and he fixes them. And some of the things he buy, like he'll buy a whole watch for like $8 because nobody wants it, doesn't know what to do with it, and he'll use it for parts or get it running. And
it's like how vintage Accutron used to be, that they put the battery in backwards and scrap it, and now it hums away.
So lastly, one more piece. I accidentally bought this one. I bid on it early, which I never usually do. I placed an early bid, forgot, and got a notification that says you won. And this was for what year is this? This is 1970. This is the Golden Clipper J, the egg-shaped dial. Vertical, bull of a logo, vertical date. This thing it came in fantastic shape. The pictures of the listing were horrible, so I was kind of worried that when it came, it wasn't going to be as nice as what it actually is.
That's always the fun surprise. I don't feel like you can usually bank on it happening that way. Right?
Yeah, I know, right? It does not have the original bracelet. It has something similar to it, which is actually stamped Chrysler, but it's not their usual Chrysler Stelux
It's a
stamp.
fake.
So yeah, I wonder, what it really is. Is it a genuine Chrysler? It has the spring end links, so maybe it's just kind of their cheaper line, the value
Bargain,
Chrysler bracelet.
bargain
I don't
Chrysler
know.
bracelet.
And this watch came running, and it worked great for 30 minutes.
And then
And then I was trying to set the time, and because with these you have to rotate them counterclockwise, which is also the direction that the crown unscrews. And the crown came loose. So crap. Okay. Not the first time I've happened to open up a watch to pull the stem out to tighten up the crown, but upon unscrewing the case back, I come to realize that the gasket had melted. And when I unscrewed it, it had shredded. And during that process, there must have been a little piece that had gotten into the movement because it no longer ticks, and I get all kinds of resistance setting the minute and hour hands. So tomorrow, this is being sent to California because I love it. I want to wear it. I wore it for half an hour with the wrong time and day. And when I went to go and fix it so I could actually wear it, I couldn't wear it anymore. So I was really bummed. I'm like a kid who broke his toy. But I'm excited to have it. I've liked those. I've tried to buy one a couple months ago and lost at auction. Know who bought it. It looks nice, but I'm glad to have picked this one up for cheaper than what the other one went for. So I feel like I won.
Well, congrats. I mean, that's a little bittersweet, but I feel like we've probably all been there with the vintage game, right?
Oh yeah.
You get something, you're so excited to strap it on and get it running, and I've broken the gear train on one as soon as it arrived. Just overwinding, trying to get to the.
But I mean, the thing was, there was no avoiding it. I mean, by the time I had pulled the case back off, the damage probably had already been done. Something had fallen in there already, and it's just like gum. Those melted gaskets. It's just like chewing gum in there. So,
I mean, at least you had the benefit. I've had watches come to me. It's like, okay, cool. And you unscrew the crown, you get ready to wind it, you unscrew the crown, and it comes.
Just the whole thing comes right out. Yeah.
The watch was running fine as long as you don't try to set it. I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
So,
well, hey, you know what? That's the vintage game, I guess.
It is. It certainly
you win
is.
some, you lose some. But it'll be fine. I'll send it to you and all will be well.
We know a guy. So
we do.
What's on the wrist? JP, we'll start with you.
All righty. Well, I might have to take it off to show it off more properly, but this is the Rado Captain Cook overpole reissue that they did recently.
So nice.
So, I mean, I absolutely love this watch. It's a World Time bezel, in case you couldn't see it, which Mike, I know you're a fan of those as well.
Yep.
And it's got this really cool, like smoke gray gradient dial, faceted applied indices. It's got a manual wound movement, so it actually stays pretty true to the original thickness. And I don't want to reignite the argument that you guys had on your last episode between reissues versus historically inspired, but they upsized it a little bit from, I think the original was 35 to 37. Anyway, wears great. It's a nice, tidy watch. The bezel makes it look a little bigger, comes on a nice beads of rice. Now there's one weird piece of trivia, and I actually am this is a cry for help because this has been vexing me. I love World Time bezels, but somewhere from what I can tell in like the 70s or 80s, maybe there was this shift away. So they used to have represented by the island of Réunion, which is a French colony, or I guess French department, I think they call it. And you'll see that on a lot of older World Time bezels. And then they've completely done away with it on more modern ones. So typically when I look at a World Time, I'm looking for older ones because for whatever reason, I have no attachment or affiliation to that place. I have no idea if it was some geopolitical reason that got it pulled off the bezels. But if anybody knows why they did the big city shift that they did years ago, I'm dying to know.
And I've seen variances in different World Time bezels. They all have, well, not they all, but some have different cities listed than others do. So yeah, it's
there's no standardization. Yeah,
well, there's no
see that one on any of them.
I think it's also like you've got affiliation, country of origin, and also the market, because the market plays a huge role in what you're looking for, particularly if you're looking at some of the central times. It's like, okay, do you put Denver or do you put Mexico City? Right?
Yeah.
The population wise, sure, but what's your market? If it's South American market, okay, Mexico City. But
Yeah, fair point. Yeah, I hadn't really considered that angle of it. But that
it's
makes
a
lot of
weird. Well, I remember seeing something. It was a map discussion about what you call certain places and disputed islands in the north of Japan and things that go along those lines. So
sense.
there's discussions to be had.
What's funny too, a little fun fact, Reunion is, I think, the longest plane flight that you can take within a particular country. So it is a French island, but you can fly from France to Reunion and not have to pull out your passport.
That is the most bizarre piece of trivia I have ever heard you say. I collect random trivia. That's
because you're literally flying nearly from one end of the world to the other. I mean, from top to bottom. Because it's now don't ask me how far apart they are. I don't know that, but I do know that much. Joe's breaking out Google.
I'm stunned. I'm absolutely stunned. I learned something new today. And
Sometimes
from Mike, of all people.
Screw you. Sometimes I do surprise.
Well, hey, JP, you got anything in the glass?
Not quite yet. I got the glass here, and I think I'm gonna go with the Highland Park Valkyrie, little single malt. Thought about doing a martini to stay on, brand, but I'm a Scotch guy.
Shaken or stirred?
So
this is neat. So
I don't mean to sound pedantic about it, but if I'm gonna do a martini, it's gonna be gin vermouth, and it's gonna be stirred gently. Vodka shaken just doesn't.
You are the villain.
Let me do that right
next. Yeah.
KC, what you got?
So I throw this on real quick. So I forgot I had it actually, but it is a variation of a more modern Bond watch. And this here is the Omega Planet Ocean. This one happens to be the orange bezeled, early 2000s variant. I think Bond had
those. I like that orange bezel.
Black one. This is actually my father's, so shout out to him. He's like, "Hey, you want to borrow it?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure. Why not?"
Yes.
But beat the shit
my
out
dad
of it.
doesn't loan me his Seamaster.
Well,
I mean, he doesn't have one, but
there.
Well, you got to have a dad with a Seamaster. So hey,
yeah,
I can't do that for you. But I've got this here because I'm an American Bond, and whenever Bond drinks in America, it sounds like this. There you go.
Like what?
We missed the whole.
We didn't hear anything.
Yeah, exactly. I don't really have my mic like in my my drink like Joe's able to, or Mike is able to do. But yeah, I was opening up a can of beer.
Okay. We'll insert the sound for you.
There you go.
All right, Joe.
Well, because I had a costume change thrust upon me, I went with I had a different choice that I then had to go because this is obviously not an appropriate tuxedo watch. One does not wear a sports watch with white tie. It's simply just not done for sartorial reasons, and like we could go into the aesthetics, but we won't. So I was wearing the day date 666 1980 Coke bezel, but I have changed to the 1950s gold with kind of the Batman lugs, president, small seconds, gilt dial. On our fifth D to T with all her love from 1956.
Very cool.
This one though, this was an interesting piece because it had the movement had been completely and utterly shattered. The engraving on the back, because it's a gold plate case, the engraving had gone too deep, and so the actual sweat from the wrist had eaten through the case back and just completely rotted the movement.
Really?
Oh yeah, it was fantastic. Like you took a look at it, like, ooh, because there's no water damage to the dial. So I took it to my watchmaker. I took it to George, and George is looking and is like, okay, I think I can do that. I'm like, all right. And what essentially he did is he melted some lead onto the inside of the case back so that sealed everything up. and also became really flat. So it made it a fantastic solution, and it worked really well. And the watch is held up. I get to keep the engraving on the back. I've actually got a little plastic film over it to make sure that I don't sweat through it for those very vigorous tuxedo wearing events that I.
Well, if you sweat through a lead backing, you've got some bigger issues.
I don't want to talk about my pH problems. It's a personal thing. I'm taking injections.
That's a new one though. I've not heard of that happening before.
It was a real interesting. It was like we had a couple of options of what to do, but like the lead seemed to be the easiest and simplest, most elegant solution to making a simple fix to something that was a relatively complex problem. Like, let's try that, because that's not going to, it's already costing me way more than the watch is almost worth to try to get all this done. And in the glass, because I do not have any Lillet, so I would not be able to make an appropriate Vesper, I am drinking champagne. Because
Joe.
Because
that's what a Joe does.
That's what
this is an occasion, right?
It's an occasion.
Yeah, there you go. So I too was just wearing a t-shirt and was thrust into not necessarily a costume change, but I threw on a jacket. However, in true Bond fashion, I did not have to change my watch because Bond wears a watch that's good for any occasion. And I am wearing my gold Oceanographer 666. This watch is good with t-shirts, and it's good with sports coats, and it's good for villain battles and car chases, but rarely does it ever leave the watch box.
When you take off your wetsuit and you have the tuxedo on underneath it, you're good to go. One watch for all.
And just like I said, I had to add an additional piece to my attire, but I did not have to change my watch because of that. This really bull of a missed an opportunity in the Bond films with this watch.
True.
Should have been.
True. Although, by British.
Yeah, well, here nor there. Hey, listen, there's Seikos and Gruens at Bond watches, so they're not, it's okay. I am not drinking any alcohol because this evening is date night, and I don't want to ruin my stomach by drinking early, so I'm just drinking some iced tea. However, if I were to be drinking some alcohol, Joe, you alluded to this a little bit earlier, I would be drinking some of this Rombauer Napa Valley Merlot.
You would be.
And why do I have this bottle, Joe? Would you care to explain why this was sent to me? Not necessarily from California, but it was sent to me nonetheless.
Because the Bulova 11 BLL won't fit into the Swiss-made case of the 1974 Braille watch with the different dial, what the numerals, because that's
an argument that we've had for quite some time, and you never wanted to listen to me, and we got video proof. Finally, somebody stepped up, made a video explaining why I was correct.
Who was the somebody?
Prize was a bottle of wine.
So somebody would be Dave, a listener of ours who is a military aircraft mechanic currently based out of Okinawa.
Okay, yes. Okay.
Which is like, you talk about how strange things kind of work. And he reached out to us saying there seems to be a sort of a barrier to entry into vintage for repair. And I kind of do my own repair, and maybe you should send me something. So I've got this, the story is I have a dealer sample of the Braille watch that doesn't have a movement. So I'm trying to source a movement, and I've got, there were two movements that were being used. There was an ETA, 1810.10, right? That's an automatic. But the issue with the Braille watch is that they have to be high torque. There's no seconds hand high torque movement because you're actually touching the dial and touching the hands to tell the time. So the search continues.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway,
Mike
gets a bottle. Mike gets a bottle of wine.
Watch.
Now I will say, however, that Mike's wine choice, it just doesn't meet my standards. So therefore,
yeah. So he did send me something other than what I requested. So there's that.
I think you'll be pleasantly surprised.
Okay.
So
yeah, moving on to the reason why we are dressed the way we are dressed. This was KC's idea. So KC, introduce us into today's topic.
Well, so what is on tap, gentlemen, is a discussion of Bond watches. So first and foremost, let's kick things off with discussing what our favorite Bond watch is. JP, you want to kick it off here?
Probably a bad idea because I overthought this.
Oh,
like you
nice.
wouldn't believe when you told me about it. So I bounced back and forth. I'll try and keep it brisk. So I'm a car guy, I'm a watch guy, I'm a gadget guy, and James Bond really introduced me to all of those things. And the one that was probably, well, I guess there were two. The two that were most impactful to me as a kid were Moonraker, I think was probably the first Bond movie I ever saw. And I'm not here to talk about the quality of it versus relative to other Bond movies, but that one just stuck in my head as a kid that, wore out the Star Wars VHSs. And I think in that he had a Seiko. It's not the data bank. That's the Casio name for it, but similar watch, very practical, very.
That's
the one that
was a little telegraph in it, or not telegraph?
I don't think it was the Telegraph, no, but
not that one.
That was the Seiko too, though.
The Seiko M354 Memory Bank calendar.
One.
It says. Yep.
That one was definitely one, and frankly, if we're talking like smart spy watch, that's probably the most kind of non-ostentatious, precise one that he could have gotten. But for me too, it was GoldenEye, right? I played that game on the N64,
Nice.
that Omega, and I think that's when they officially became like the brand partnership was for that movie with Pierce Brosnan. And so that Seamaster with the laser, and I don't remember the exact reference. Omega references are like gibberish to me.
Professional 300M reference 254.80.
So this is coming out of your
That's what I
butt,
was
right?
gonna say.
Oh, of course. I don't have any reference material whatsoever.
I'm pretty sure
So-
those reference numbers are like
Yeah, there's
20
more.
digits.
There's more to that reference. There's a couple
Yeah.
decimals and some
Yeah,
other random
exactly.
characters.
Point 321, point omega, point.
That's someone's routing number.
It's the latitude and longitude.
So it'd be a toss up between those or maybe the Rolex GMT Masters that I think Lewis Connery wore a couple of those.
Mm-hmm.
And that was
Yeah, those showed
a
up in a
Bond
couple.
villain watch, one of the female villains. She had the GMT Master too.
Yeah, I don't remember who, but I think you're right.
Pussy galore.
That's the one.
I think after last week's episode, Casey just didn't want to say it.
That's 100%. That's exactly. I was like, you know what? I'm not going to say it. But
Yeah.
It's the nickname for the watch.
well, all right. So what about you, Mike?
So I came up with two. I have my favorite gadget watch and then my favorite Bond watch. So my favorite gadget is going to be the Spectre Seamaster 300. And it's not the first exploding watch, but just when it's activated, all the hands line up to 12 and the dial flashes red. I think when I saw it, it was just like so cool. I'm like, wow, I like that. I wish I had something that blows up like that. So that's, I think, my favorite gadget watch. But the No Time to Die, the Bond special, the latest release, I think is my favorite Bond watch in design. And it doesn't matter if it's on the mesh or on the NATO. I tend to prefer that No Time to Die NATO strap a little bit more.
Yeah.
But that's just a beautiful looking piece. I absolutely, if I could afford one, I would wear one probably every day.
Fun fact about that watch, Ray. It's a good choice, by the way. I have two clients, actually, I was mentioning this before we went live, who are obsessed with Bond and Seamaster specifically. And one of them has been like, I've been wanting a Seamaster forever, and I really like the most recent one, Daniel Craig, iconic. James Bond's my favorite movie character. Maybe you can help me find one for a decent price someday. And I saw that they're actually auctioned Daniel Craig's screen used
Right.
watch off recently. I don't know if the auction happened, but it's I saw this
It's
a few weeks ago.
potentially going on. Yeah.
Yeah,
Wow.
and I made the mistake of sending this guy the link to it,
Oh,
and he really, I mean, he's not going for it. Obviously, it's going to go for somebody estimated like 60 grand or something, crazy like that. But he's
So-
like, how can I get in on this? Maybe you need to just go for a similar watch, similar reference.
So I'm going to piggyback on that. And in our pre-show, I had asked you guys a little bit of trivia, and I asked you, what was the first gadget watch? Now, nobody wanted to answer, but take a guess. Does anybody know what the first gadget watch was?
I thought it was one of the Seikos.
Was it a TV watch?
That is incorrect.
All right.
Joe, any guess?
No.
No. Okay. So it was in Thunderball. It was a Breitling top time chronograph. It was a Geiger counter. That was the
Oh,
first-
that's right.
That
The
goes
first
way
introduction
back.
of a gadget watch. And interestingly enough, when I was reading about this, it has said that in 2013, the watch was actually sold in a British flea market for 25 pounds.
Yeah.
The person who bought it then turned around and sold it at auction for over 100,000.
Nice.
Wow.
Yes. Yeah. That the story on that watch is just killer. It's a good choice. It's a good choice. I'm all right with that one.
Yeah.
I'm all right with that.
You won't believe how many times that's happened to me at a flea market.
That you found a Bond watch?
Yeah. 0.
0, right? Yeah, right up there with the rest of us. Oh man. Well, I am, to be absolutely honest, I am not the biggest Bond fan. I don't believe I've seen all the movies. I've only read a couple of the books. So for me, the choice of Bond watch, it's a fairly simple one. I go with the first movie. I go with that original Big Crown Rolex, the 6538 on the Bond NATO. And that's the only reason. Like we have called that Zulu strap. So
yeah. So the 6538 actually made many appearances throughout the earlier films, but it didn't come on that Bond NATO that you're referring to until what was it? The third movie, the Goldfingers, when it actually showed up on that.
Yep. That's
that Bond NATO.
That's it. That's it for
the
me.
Iconic small Bond NATO.
It's like an 18 millimeter on the 20 millimeter fixed lugs.
Yep.
Like the Pulsar is nice. The No Time to Die, I've seen that, I've handled that, and that the bracelet that it comes on, it's a nice watch. But as soon as we get into those new Seamasters, like that helium escape valve, it ruins it for me, man.
Those are love it or hate it kind of thing. I don't mind them. They don't bother me. Casey's got one on his wrist right now.
Does it bother you, Casey?
Not the biggest fan, no.
Bothers Casey. See, I had that discussion with somebody. We were talking about that at a meetup, and he had a bunch of them. Like, the size doesn't quite work for me. That helium escape valve doesn't work for me. He's like, oh, I don't even notice it. Like, yeah, but I would. So
I'm sure it's like anything else, you can get used to it. But yeah, I agree. I've seen helium escape valves done more subtly, I guess.
Yeah. The Tudor Pelagos has one that's pretty much flush with the case.
What, at the 9 o'clock, right?
Yeah.
I think doesn't the Rolex Sea Dweller, is it 10 or something like that?
And again, nearly flush, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, it's very like similar technology. I remember seeing documents on that.
My dad has the Deep Sea, the James Cameron one.
Yeah.
And I think that one's at 9.
Is it?
Yeah, I think I've seen those at 9 as well. And now, aren't the Comex subs, those helium escape valves, aren't those like garage jobs? Didn't they drill them in and pop those in there after the fact?
Oh,
they did.
Is that why they all failed too?
They were working on it. It was a work in progress.
Yeah. Just imagine that, having to retrofit a helium escape valve into the side of your Rolex.
Well, they weren't really worth that much back then, so they were probably like,
it's fair.
They all still belong to Comex, but anyway.
So now, look, Bond is one of my favorite symbols of toxic masculinity. Right? That's my guy. But the guy who gave birth to Bond, Ian Fleming, his watch.
Let's talk about that. That's
oyster case with the luminescent dial that was used as a knuckle duster. So, of course, my favorite is the Rolex Explorer.
His was the 1016 because it was from that time.
Right.
It's that iconic reference.
Time goes on, and if you need something built better, this is the ultimate evolution of that watch. This dusts more knuckles.
Now, hang on. hang on, right? You got it on a strap, but let's have a conversation then about that watch, which is this. You've got that's the new one, right? What are the dimensions on that? It's not the
This is
41,
36. This is the newest released one.
right? And so, and it harkens back to the original size, but like the Explorer has gone through this evolution, right? And there's 39s, 41s, and 36 is your traditional size, and so it's moved around a little bit.
It's only been 36 and then 39.
There wasn't a 41.
No, that was where everyone thought it was going to go when they released 36.
All right, fair enough.
So, what is our favorite like gadget on the Bond watch? I know Mike already tipped his hand, so you want to recap real quick, Mike?
So yeah, that Seamaster 300, the exploding watch, I guess that would just put me in the category of all the Bond exploding watches. It's just something cool, something very Bondish, dangerous, living on the edge, having a bomb strapped to your wrist, and then you can just slap it on something and you blow something up. I just think it's cool.
Having run around the woods with explosives in my rucksack, I can tell you right now, it kind of, the adrenaline fades off after a little while. Once you start getting complacent, you're like, did I put the fuse in? Did I not? I'm probably not going to trip. It's fine.
Yeah, I fiddle with my watches way too much. I would blow my hand off pretty much immediately.
I think you'd be
would have
lucky
set the
to
bezel
only
the
blow
wrong
your
way,
hand
and all of a
off.
sudden, yeah.
Hey,
But
why did it flash red?
if I had to pick a second one, can I make a second choice real quick?
Yeah, why not?
Which one was it? I have it written down here somewhere. Okay. The Seiko H357 dual display. That's the one.
That's
I
not the one that
believe-
had the ticker tape, right? Wasn't there one?
That's
what movie was
yeah.
that?
No, I take that back. I think that's the one that was the printer watch. You're right.
Yeah.
That was
It was-
funny. I don't remember which movie that was in, but I remember that made me laugh as a kid because it looked like coming out of a label maker.
It was
Yeah,
exactly coming out of a label maker.
Yeah,
like,
definitely.
They had it underneath this, just stuck underneath the strap, and you could just
Yeah.
pull it out, but it could only be like 7 inches long. So, because
Yeah,
that was the whole strap width.
Honestly, that
Okay.
was my dark horse choice too. Like I was thinking of that same one.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So what's your
But-
backup, JP?
Well, my actual favorite would be the 300 laser from GoldenEye. Something about just watching that shoot out. And again, I would lose an eye or cut my own head off with it, playing with
Oh
it.
my
but
gosh.
Just so
Yeah,
fun.
probably.
JP's either blowing up his wrist or he's lasering an eye out. He's not make a good Bond villain.
But he's the perfect cast for Home Alone.
Yeah, you know how many I can take a lot of bricks to the face and continue to do my line. All right.
These are
facial hair.
important considerations, very important considerations. I don't know. I'm kind of a fan of a watch being a watch. I'm not that big on this. Like, you got extra stuff that goes on in there. Too much of my time is spent watching Mythbusters. They did a whole episode. Well, seriously, they did a whole episode on how much explosive you could pack into a pin. They were talking about the exploding pin from GoldenEye.
Mhm.
And like a watch is smaller. So, and okay, now granted, we don't get to play with the same kind of explosives that KC has, but like obviously we're not talking about a Rolex movement or an Omega movement packed in there with a bunch of explosive. So like I go back to the Pulsar, to be absolutely honest. Like talk about kind of new and different at the time. It's definitely up there. So for me, that's about it. I'm a simple man.
What's your gadget watch?
My favorite gadget watch is the Seiko TV watch. And I've
Yep.
been looking at them on eBay.
Yeah.
They are super cool. Like, yeah, you got to hump that stupid transmitter around and whatnot, but just the fact that there's a TV watch, that's so cool.
Mhm.
And the
I remember
particular,
seeing one of those at a Sears, and yeah, I thought it was just the
Wow,
Jetsons technology.
you just dated yourself. Good God, man.
well,
Well, no one
especially
else
since
will,
you brought
so.
up Sears.
At a Sears. Oh, wait, you sure it wasn't at Montgomery Ward?
Yeah.
How about
Sears,
TG and Y?
Sears is like one of those great lost pyramids that you find in America. It's like,
Oh my
Yeah.
how is
God,
that
yes.
bad?
I'm surprised nobody brought up the Buzzsaw, which doubled as the magnet, I believe, right?
Did.
Wasn't that
Yes.
watch the same? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, I mean it's all right.
It's
I mean,
all right.
you're talking, really thinking outside of the box.
All I care about is can I still lose a hand to it? And the answer is yes.
See?
I would argue that you would only lose like maybe a 16th into your palm.
Only maybe a finger if you tried real
I
hard.
mean, yeah,
I got
you
pretty
have to come
slender
at it
wrists,
with
guys.
another-
That's the whole show.
Slender wrist.
There you go. Yeah.
So
All
can we talk real quick? So we also discussed this one, I think, pre-show. Casey, you had alluded that you were trying to find one, but the Gruen 510, which I
Yes.
think is kind of an underrated Bond watch.
I wish it was underrated because if it was, we'd still be able to find them quickly on eBay. But they're pretty tough to find now.
See, that's why you need to go get yourself a bull of a president.
And now,
Similar
as the
aesthetic,
story
better
goes,
lugs.
as the story goes with that watch, is it wasn't necessarily a watch chosen for the movie, but that was just Sean Connery's personal watch,
Yeah.
and that's how it ended up in the movies because it showed
Happened
up
to
in
have
2
it.
movies, I believe. Huh?
Yeah.
I think that was the case with the original sub too, wasn't it? Is that was his personal watch, and he was just it was what
yeah,
he
I
was
think
wearing
so,
that day.
Yeah. The thing that I find really funny though is like you go on Chrono 24 and you type in James Bond. You've
Master?
got a pretty solid series of listings that are going on here.
Really?
Do you know?
Oh, you do.
Like
oh,
what?
you do.
Casey's getting on his phone.
Seamaster Aquaterra, Seamaster 300M. All of the branded watches are there. I don't even know how many listings there are. What do we got here?
Wait, the Aquaterra. What movie was that? Oh, that must have been one of the more recent ones.
Yeah, more
obviously,
recent. But so now
That was-
there's sub. But Rolex sub no date, but with crown guards. Like, okay, you're stretching. But there's like 5 pages of listings just for James Bond. And so like it's not even that they're branded watches necessarily.
Yeah.
Like
Well, I mean,
any-
I think again for a lot of people,
There's a
James Bond is your
Speedmaster
kind of
on
awakening
here.
to
What the
watches.
hell?
there
Right?
you go.
Wasn't the Aquaterra, wasn't that a Skyfall one?
Uh-huh.
I think it made a
Maybe.
brief appearance.
But I mean, here's a Gruen Precision 510 for $995.
Oh,
Really? Is it?
Bargain priced.
If that's a Chrono 24 price, it really is.
Right? So I mean, it's strange that there's this market for those. I was at the Omega boutique in South Coast Plaza in Orange County last week, and they've got a whole wall just full of Bond watches, basically. And you're like the thing that's interesting, like you go to Rolex.
Like a history of Bond watches, or
Not just no,
modern
but they're
iteration?
like here's the Bond watches, and this is what we have in stock, and they're available to purchase. Like you can get them, they're
Huh.
there. So
That's cool.
it's a really interesting kind of thing that Omega has really. Omega, like you have to respect the branding that Omega does, because they took the Speedmaster to literally new heights.
I mean, the Seamaster.
The Speedmaster, thank you.
shame on you.
I don't have one. I don't
Shame
care.
on you.
I'm still waiting to get that Bulova.
That was a freaking garbage joke.
Come on. It's been in space. Been on the moon.
Oh,
Been on the moon. Anyway,
Anyways,
they've been able to brand through that probably better than just about anybody.
Well, it makes sense when you think about it, though, right? I mean, you're talking the intersection of 2 very different markets, and James
Well-
Bond is so well known that people who want to be like him, who wouldn't
Yes.
necessarily dress
But
in a
so
tux
the
normally or drive an Aston
discussion
Martin,
the discussion
get a
that I
watch.
heard was Beaver, Jean-Claude Bivier, who paid more to make sure that the branding for Omega got into the Bond stuff. And it's like,
Yes.
no, I don't want you to, we're not just going to wear the watch. I'm going to pay more to get the watch branded, and so that we can feature the watch. I want
and
the watch to have a
specifically say Rolex, no, Omega.
right. And so
Omega.
you got to the watch needs to be mentioned in the script. It has to have a new functionality, and there needs to be a feature for it. He paid extra money to get that, and the branding has just gone through the roof. So,
mhm.
Talk about a marketing move that was just plated in gold. I mean, good God,
Yeah.
man.
So that leads me to a question, right? We're talking great Bond watches, and none of us mentioned it, but it was there was a Rolex chronograph featured in
Yes.
one of them. I think
Yeah.
it was a
Oh,
Roger
yeah.
Moore film. Now you're thinking, okay,
I
I'm
have
trying
it
to think.
written down here,
Thank you.
JP.
I'm trying to think pragmatically, right? I'm trying to be objective, right? And the reason I wore the Rado was I'm thinking like, hey, a world time function would actually be useful for someone trying to coordinate, a mission and see what time it is for the, guy in Malaysia who's going to do his part of the mission. It would seem to me that a chrono would be kind of the ultimate mission timer watch, unless Bond just doesn't really care about. I mean, we see he's pretty cavalier with things. He uses his real name, whatever. Like, so maybe he doesn't care about actually
Right,
how long it's taking him
the
to do
watch
stuff.
is a knuckle duster.
Well, but see, then like, that brings us back kind of the same question that we've talked about with you, Casey. That there's all of these watches that have military provenance and whatever, but everybody wears a G-Shock. Like,
Yeah.
wouldn't Bond wear a G-Shock?
And I think we'll get to that when we discuss what we want to see the next watch to be.
Bond had a
But
tune-up.
realistically, yeah, there's no reason to wear a Rolex while
No.
you're doing this job.
Well, I mean, unless it's a sub and unless it's an issued sub. But there was a really.
Well, I mean, shit. I tell you what, you give me a watch for free, I'm gonna wear that son of a gun.
Of course, right. But the point was, there was something that came up. It was a discussion that happened. There's a book that's called "The Catcher Was a Spy," and it was one of the catchers for the Yankees became a member of the OSS, and they're flying into Germany to be dropped behind enemy lines. And he's looking around, is like, they're going to catch us. Like, what do you mean they're going to catch us? Like, we're all wearing the same watch, and everybody was wearing their issued timepiece, even though they're in German civilian clothes.
Oh man,
Right. Okay.
Wow.
And so like you take a look at it from that standpoint. It's like, all right, G-Shock would kind of work. It's a ubiquitous watch. You can get them anywhere. It's cheap. It's replaceable. It's multifunction. So like you can get a world timer that's built in just with a push of a button. You can get multiple alarms. It has a light. Come on.
And if you get the one that isn't Bluetooth or anything like that, you can get into skiffs is what we call them. These are like the really high security rooms that we go into to do sort of planning and stuff like that. Because normally you have to take your watch off if it's Bluetooth enabled. But if you got a standard $40 Casio, you're in.
And I got to think like, okay, so the chronograph, it's the Rolex chronograph reference 6238. What's the water resistance on that? Nothing.
Yeah.
Right. So cool.
I'm pretty sure the G-Shock Square is a freaking dive watch at 200 meters.
Right. And so it's like I look at some of these things, like some of the other Seikos that are there, and you've got the anti-digi Seikos and if you're a super spy, I think you're probably wearing an Apple Watch.
Yes.
Right?
But my only counter to that is just the fact that you can be pinged with that.
Exactly. Yeah, I think that's a terrible super spy watch.
Why? It is
because you can be tracked.
You can be tracked, but you can completely remove the tracking on it. But you talk about the most ubiquitous watch in the world.
Q would have his like tailor-made one.
Yeah.
It would be packed with C4. Off. It's fine.
But okay, so what do we think about the most current Bond watch? Again, Mike already talked about it. It is a sexy as hell watch.
Yeah, it is beautiful. I love that thing. It really, that's the best way to describe it. Sexy as hell. If you haven't seen it in person, go to an AD and look at one. Oh gosh, they're gorgeous.
That Seamaster 300. It's nice.
I really am the bad guy here, aren't I?
You are. Do it.
You don't like it?
It's not that I don't like it. If you were to give me one, friend to friend, I would accept it humbly and probably wear it once a
Hey, so what's your address again? Let me go ahead and
So here's my issue, right? I know Mike talked about the helium escape valve. I think it was you, Mike, mentioned that it's too clunky, or maybe it was Joe. But so there's that, throws off the symmetry for me. And then there's something for me. The watch is beautifully finished. I did have the opportunity to handle one, and it's impeccably made. I mean, it's definitely Omega swinging for the fences on that. Something about that angled touch points on the bezel.
What, the scallop bezel?
Yeah, it just sits wrong for me.
But that's a synonymous Seamaster bezel, though. They all are scalloped like that. It's just what a Seamaster is.
No, see, that's
Okay,
got a
except for
coin
that
edge,
one.
right? Yeah. Except for but I mean that's fairly recent innovation, right? If you go back farther, I think they had a more traditional coin edge bezel, but it didn't really stand out that much. And so
Mhm.
they kind of said, hey, we want to really again brand this. And they
Yeah.
certainly achieved it because it's instantly recognizable. That
Right.
profile, you're not going to miss it. And I think again, that's why people that don't necessarily get really into watches are like, hey, James Bond is cool. I'm cool. I want to wear the same watch James Bond does because it also doesn't look like just another Submariner clone or any other watch that you can just get at a Macy's or
See, I'm-
Sears. If
right.
you
But
want.
I'm a fan of just the aesthetic of the watch. You've got that lollipop seconds hand, and I'm a sucker for the lollipop seconds hand. You've
Mhm.
got that broad arrow hours hand.
Yes.
Like, it's
That's my favorite part.
it's a good looking watch, and it doesn't have some of the same Bond branding that you got from some of the other ones, like 007 on the seconds hand, or James Bond on the dial, or the name of the
Yeah,
movie
none
on
of
the
that
dial.
cheesy BS.
It's a little more subtle. The Seamaster itself, it's a very iconic design, and it doesn't come across it. I'm okay with that. I don't know that I would wear one though, because it's still kind of big,
It is big.
like the Omega
But-
watches wear large.
Even like this guy right here, it's full titanium, and on the case back, it's got what is an NSN, which is a national stock number, which is what your supply guy uses to order equipment.
Right.
I'm pretty sure they even did a fake NSN and whatnot on that watch, so it seems super official.
They did, but I mean, it's not the same
That's
as
a clever touch. I gotta say.
which is the one that's got the broad arrow on it. It was the shoot.
There's a couple.
One of yeah, and then if they threw the MOD broad arrow on the watch face, it's like, okay,
Yeah,
that's
it's
that
the
one?
newest one.
That's the newest one. Yeah.
Is
that's
it?
the newest one. Yeah.
all right. I'm not a Bond fan. I just have the tuxedo.
I thought you were talking the broad arrow hands, but
Me
no,
too.
on the dial.
No, on the
that's
dial.
new-
On the dial.
Yeah, that's the new one.
The MOD.
Yeah. That's the one. So Casey, you and I are in agreement that that's the most beautiful Bond
Yes.
watch, right? Do you prefer it on the mesh or on the NATO?
All right. So I have a general rule: buy it on the metal or bracelet if you can. But that damn NATO is the best NATO I've seen.
Right.
Yeah.
Hey Joe,
and
ain't
that's
it a
why-
school night?
What's that?
In a week.
It is, which is why he's drinking extra.
It's been a week, JP. It's been a. I
Being a
was
teacher is easy. You just tell them, "Hey, do this homework," right? That's all you
I
gotta
was
do.
out last night. I got home around 3:30. I woke up at 8. I'm recording with you. I'm wearing a tuxedo.
You are having a hard time, aren't you?
Life is rough.
Well,
So-
all right. So where do we want to
Yep.
see Bond watches go? Do we want the G-Shock? Do we want hot horology? All this other stuff? What do we want to see?
You know what I'd like to see again is, and there's only been one Tag Heuer Bond watch. I'd like to
Yeah.
see Tag Heuer get back in the game.
They can't get the marketing. It's like you look at it from a branding standpoint. It's Omega all over
but
the place now.
Hold on. Don't get all Mr. Marketing on me. These are fantasies. So
I'm wearing a tuxedo. It's already a fantasy. Come on, man.
I'd like to see a Tag Heuer. Why can't I think it? What's the dive watch name?
Oh shoot!
What are they called? I'm drawing a complete blank. What are their dive watches
They're
called?
not the Aqua Racer, are they? No.
The Aqua Racer, yeah, an
Is it the
Aqua
Aqua
Racer
Racer
Bond
stuff?
watch. I think would be, if they were to tweak that and come out with a cool
That one
edition,
had a fully loomed dial, right?
it did.
The new,
Yep.
Yeah, that was kind of
Yeah.
cool.
See,
I think it was
would,
PVD coded as well.
Yeah, it was.
I wouldn't go
Black.
there. I think if it's Bond, it needs to be British. Buy local.
I
So,
absolutely disagree.
okay. You're
What-
wrong,
okay,
but that's
yeah.
fine.
What British watch did Bond
That
ever
limits
wear?
you to
None.
what is that?
He
Vermont?
he
That
did
would be-
he did absolutely none. But when you start looking at, like, okay, you got the Dirty Dozen brands, which Omega is one. That's fine. But you also got JLC, you got some others, but they're like, you've got Smiths, you've got Vertex, you've got
Oh man, yo, challenge to Smiths.
right.
Go make us a Bond watch. I'd buy that ish immediately. If
Right.
It wasn't already sold out by the time you mentioned it.
If we're talking micro brand British, I think Vertex would jump on that in a heartbeat, and I
Come
think it would
on.
look pretty good. Actually,
look
that's a good
fantastic.
point. Yeah.
And you go like talking about Provence, it's got all that. And then if you really want, it's like, okay, cool. Well, it needs to be a bond watch, so it needs to be complicated. It's like, okay, cool. So right, Roger Smith, thank you. You're telling me that Roger Smith can't figure out a way to make the watch write Bond's name on the guy? Come on, the guy trained with George Daniels, for crying out loud. He can make a watch do whatever it wants. It can jump up and jump through hoops, and it's going to ride a pony. And
How about a Fears Bond watch?
I would be okay with that too.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
Right? When you start talking about British micro brands or British branded watches and all, I got to think that there should be a level of that comes into play.
I
But
mean,
if you're
Vermont
looking
is
at-
starting to make their own movements, I think, and they're they're trying to do military grade divers and stuff like that.
And then on top of that, like if you look at the relationship that's going on between the British military and watch brands, I'm looking at Tudor real hard. Without getting into like the Marine Nationale stuff, but Tudor has a reputation that's gone on with the British military forever. But to be absolutely honest, like, yeah, it should be a G-Shock.
So you do know that despite the name Tudor, they're not actually affiliated.
I understand,
Okay,
but
wanted to make
Hans
sure.
Wilsdorf, he chose Tudor
Thanks for
because of that, and was a Brit, and then moved to. We could get into the history of Rolex if you want, JP.
I mean,
but it
they were
doesn't change
briefly
the fact.
incorporated in London. That is a fact, but I just want to triple check.
There goes
Put
the helmet.
the helmet
All
on.
right, carry on.
And for those of you guys who aren't watching and are only listening, last episode when arguments got heated, KC's got this military helmet that he straps on as his signal to tell us to shut the hell up.
Oh yeah, there you go.
There it is, yeah. And now he's just put it back on again.
Well, so I would like to see a Zin.
Oh,
okay.
They're
I can
super
see
tough. Like,
that,
you get
yeah.
the tegimented steel. I'm thinking about a specific references to U2T EZM. I think it's a GMT. So you get that, extra function of being able to track different time zones. And hell, if you want to, 3D print it out of plastic explosive like Joe suggested, you could do that too. It'd be pretty sweet. Wait, was it Mike that suggested that?
That was me that suggested. Joe says it wouldn't be able to be serviced.
Okay, there you
it's
go.
Points to warranty.
I question. I'm sorry. I question water resistance. That's all I'm saying.
So you're really questioning Q's capabilities. I think
You're
Q can
right.
service
Are-
Yeah. Have you seen British Electrics? You ever tried to fix a British car?
that.
All you need is a hammer.
Yeah. They say that the British like warm beer because the refrigerators always quit working.
There's
They're
some truth.
they're goal your British listeners, guys. I'm sorry.
all two of them. They're gone now.
Wait,
Yeah.
why is it negative?
So I don't know. I think so. I'm trying to think objectively here, right? When I think what the next watch should be,
Yeah,
and
stop
I'm
doing
saying
that.
it's not. I'm sorry, man. I'm kind of wired. that way.
Really?
I overthink it. I'm sorry. I'm not actually that sorry. I'm sorry. I'm not sorry. So I'm thinking mecha quartz for the movement.
Ooh, shoot.
All right, because you get precision, but you also get, the degree of sweep, I guess. Here's the thing: as silly as it is, Bond has to be able to make an appearance in a tux and at the baccarat tables, whatever. So it's got to be something dressy. So it can't just be a G-Shock. It has to be something that can masquerade on the level of a sub. So it's got to be something kind of dressy, tool watch-ish. It's got to be able to. So it's not something that necessarily exists unless
That's
someone
true.
knows of it,
That's true.
Mhm.
right? So it's got to have the water resistance so he can do a scuba diving maneuver. It's got to be able to go into space. It's got to be able to hang out at the fine dining and casino establishments.
Wait, you
So-
really have put a lot of thought into this.
Yeah, it
Well,
really
yeah.
is. He fucking
sorry.
got me, like, oh my god.
I don't think we can have JP back for a little while, man. I don't think that's going to be okay. He's putting us to shame here, and he's not even wearing a tux.
You're the only one wearing a tux
That's because I'm classy.
because you're a
Damn it.
band teacher.
Sorry.
Yes,
You
I
get over a
am.
cold.
Okay, let him continue. Okay, so it all culminates to
Mecha quartz.
yeah.
I don't know what it
multifunction.
culminates to because I don't think it's something that exists yet. I don't think it's something. And you guys mentioned some good brands that could be in the running to make it. But yeah, I mean, while we're talking fantasy,
Well, would you say Annie Digi then? because you get some of that analog and digital.
I love that watch, Casey. I really do.
I would.
But I don't see Bond wearing that. I'm sorry.
So I'm
There's-
thinking it's
he's had
Anadigi, but it's got to
Anadigi
be
watches.
something. It's got to be something that's like e-ink or something like that on the dial, so that it's an analog dial, analog handset, and it only shows you digital time for your, actual military time, maybe when you press, actuate the button or something like that.
Yeah.
But hang on, because what you're describing, if we're honest, it takes us back to some of the Seikos. Like you've got
Probably,
the
yeah.
Well, you know that there are Seiko and a Digibond watches.
right. There's a
Bring
few of them.
Seiko
Like we're
back.
not talking about the tuna
Bring
here.
Seiko back.
No, not the tuna. There's other ones too.
Right. Other than that, completely.
So maybe it's the Grand Seiko quartz, because the Seiko, as awesome
Oh,
as they are
snap.
not going to pass muster when he goes to
9F.
the high roller table.
9F
Right?
movement.
Well,
Okay.
let's see.
Okay, here we are.
But when you think about the Pulsar at the time,
I don't think about the Pulsar, Joe. I'm sorry.
No one thinks about the
but
Pulsar.
you should because at
The
the
Pulsar
time
is
that
the
was
Sears.
no. The Pulsar was a high-end watch. It was difficult to obtain.
It was cutting edge.
Right, completely. And so it comes in that same space. But we're talking about, the Seiko, what is that? H357 duo display. And so you got an Anidigi that goes on with that. You've
Mhm.
got the other Seiko quartz digital from 1979, memory bank calendar. I was like, come on.
But we're talking the next Bond movie, 2024, right? Or whenever it's going
Which
to come
I,
out. New Bond, we
we
got a
talked
new
about as a
Bond.
value proposition that Anidigi watches from the 90s. It's going to be a thing. JP, corner the market now, because we're all going to be asking for one in like 20 minutes.
Yeah, start stocking up. Ghost and Crown. Your outlet for Digis.
All things,
So that's the sales pitch, huh? Thank you.
Yeah.
all Pulsar watches all the time.
I do actually like the Pulsar. I should take back the nasty comment I made earlier. I'm a fan of
See?
Hamilton in general.
Yeah.
Damn it, JP.
I hear that a lot around here.
Damn it, JP. Why are the kids all gooey?
Why are they still gooey?
Why are they still gooey?
Ooh.
They've been gooey.
I
For
didn't know
extended
this.
duration.
So I think more importantly than what should the next Bond watch be, who is the next Bond?
Idris Elba.
Ooh,
I'd buy
Ooh.
that ticket.
okay.
They've been talking about him for years, though, right?
It's been a while. It's
Yeah.
not going to happen because they think he's too old. But then, like, Connery played him with a hairpiece, so it's like,
Yeah, I was gonna say, what? Craig isn't any younger at this point.
right? I don't think it's
Yeah.
I don't think it's that big of a problem. Who knows who they're going to get?
He still looks so good in
So-
those little blue trunks, right? That's why I
So-
wore them underneath here for tonight's episode.
Connery. Well, let's go and stick with the Connor kind of theme and go with Conor McGregor.
Conor McGregor. I don't. Yeah.
Okay,
Not very
no,
inconspicuous, is he?
no, but you're totally right. You're totally right. Like, they can't do any shirts off shots of him because of the tattoos, because the cover up would cost more than his salary. But I would buy that ticket.
No
long
as he
one
wears the
thinks
suit
Conor
with
the FU
McGregor is a
pinstripes.
world-renowned spy. They're just like, oh, this guy's way too loud. He's not the guy we're looking for.
I don't know. I feel like that makes him perfect. I read this weird theory about James Bond that he's not actually the operative. He's the distraction.
Right.
And it's people like behind the scenes that are, actually doing the work
Really?
while he blows everything up. Yeah.
That
'Cause,
would
I mean,
make
he's
a
there's
lot
a
of
few different
sense.
theories that go along with that. And that James Bond is the pseudonym and everything about it. And it's
See,
not
I always
actually-
loved that theory, and I actually ascribed to that until they showed the Bond family mansion in Skyfall,
Skyfall.
right?
Right.
Mhm.
And it was his, so I'm like, that kind of ruined that for me. But I agree. I love that theory back
It's
in the
it's
day.
a fantastic little bit.
Yeah.
But,
So
I'm-
okay,
I'm
we got
scrolling-
Idris Elba. Vote for Idris,
I'm,
which
I'm
I
a-
agree with.
But I will say this, like, I'm scrolling through all the watches right now, and that Hoyer shows up. That Hoyer's really cool.
See,
It's a really nice
See?
watch.
I
It
told
really
ya.
is.
The Loom
It really
dial
is.
one? Yeah.
I'd wear that.
An Aqua Racer Bond watch. That would be badass.
Better than the Octavia, the new Octavias, but still. But the Tuna.
Oh wait,
the
didn't they
Tuna's
do
also
that?
not bad.
That Mario? Wasn't that Tag Heuer did the Mario smartwatch recently? There you go. Just sub in
That's a whole different movie franchise.
MI6 agent.
We aren't
for
talking about
Mario.
that yet. We're gonna get it. We'll get into Nintendo watches later.
Yeah. Well, all right. Do we want to roll into last call?
We should roll into last call.
Yeah,
So
last call. What do you?
I got a last call. I got
Okay.
a last call. And I was scrolling through the internet today and I ran into there's a website called uncrate.com. And they have paired up with DC Comics. And they have released it's a Bell and Ross Wayne Enterprises by Uncrate by Bell and Ross BR0392 watch. So it's a square watch. It's skeletonized. It's got kind of a gold little bit. What's it say? The design of the first Bell and Ross 0392 was inspired by aviation. Blah 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 blah. It's like, okay, that's really interesting, and I can follow along behind that. But then you take a look at the rest of the drop, and you've got the Rogue Territory Gotham City supply jacket, the gym collection that has weights, kettlebells, some other stuff with gold tone. You have the Danner lightweight Gotham City boot, the Wayne Enterprises by Uncrate by Patrick's grooming collection of men's beauty supplies, the Gotham City garb, the Wayne Enterprises Ace System performance supplements to make sure you get your workout just exactly right, the Barton Perrier, I can't even say it, Damien sunglasses, the MVP punching bag and matching boxing gloves, then the Cross Studios watch winder, the Fisk Knack dumbbells, and the Fisk Dode jump rope.
So where's this
Accent
going,
protein
Joe?
shake. Well, where's this going? This is so when you think about iconic characterizations that have been missing out on the branding, Batman and everything
Who?
Batman. Like, let's talk about it. Like, Bond has had how many different brands, and we just spent an hour
Only
and a
one
half
that
talking
matters,
about them.
Omega.
Well, right, but when you start looking like the Christian Bale movies, they threw a whole bunch of different watches. I mean, he had JLC, he had a couple APs, he had some other stuff. But I think that they are missing out on looking at, in terms of an icon, Batman branded anything, because you could, like, it's going to be Batman branded toe clippers and Batman
So
branded.
Are you trying to tell me that there is not enough Batman branded merchandise?
There's a ton of it, but none of it's mattered. None of it's gone. Like, we aren't talking about
My
Batman branded
underoos
anything.
would beg to differ, Joe.
Mine too.
Really? You can name stuff?
All I wear is Batman underwear.
Underoos doesn't count.
Okay, so we're shitting on those, huh?
Well, if you do, then you
Unintended?
So my point is, though, like, I think
Please arrive at the point.
the point is, if the people behind any of the Batman stuff could be as consistent and as direct as the Bond franchise has been, like the money that's being left on the table, just as, so they throw this out. Okay, this is Wayne Enterprises, but it's coming from uncrate.com. Like, you guys don't know who uncrate.com is. Nobody knows who uncrate.com is. So nobody's going to see any of this drop. And there's some interesting stuff. It's not that it's that great, but I think that there's a huge opportunity that's being missed, because we just, we talk about Bond for as long as we have,
Well,
with a variety of brands that go with it. And you're
in
telling me the
fairness,
Batman
we could
franchise is
probably
worth less
talk-
than Bond?
We could talk twice as long on Batman stuff. I feel as if there's far more Batman branded items.
There is, but it's inconsequential. There's no money behind it. It's complete dross. Whereas if they were to take that and make it anything remotely serious, you could make a ton of money. Over
Why
and
so
over.
serious, Joe?
Why so
Why
serious? Shut the.
Why so serious, Joe?
JP, see, going with the villain.
He was
Always
playing the
the
villain there. Didn't you get the reference?
You did it. You did it very well. The smile is, disconcerting.
Okay. Casey, what's your last call?
All right. So, James Bond is that hyper masculine person that we all aspire to be. Like, if you want to be a manly man, there's Bond. But there is this misconception that if you want to be like that person, let's say soldiers, airmen, police, firemen, that you have to be this, impenetrable mental fortress that you never have any issues, right? And I don't want to be super dark here, Mr. Debbie Downer, but suicide is a very real part of those professions and even just life in general. I don't want to target this solely to people who wear uniforms. So I've dealt with suicide all my life. Like, people I've known have killed themselves. So I grew up in a military community. People who are very close to me have taken their own lives. And very recently, about 2 weeks ago, a soldier in my company took his own life. And he took his own life the day drill ended. And this is a guy who, while we weren't friends, we were coworkers. He's the guy who handed me my rifle and ammunition during the DC calamity. A very formative point in my life. I will never forget that moment. Taking a rifle, taking ammunition, live ammunition, and that was the man who handed me that. And he'd been struggling with these things in his mind that he just couldn't speak to anybody about, because the profession that we are in, there's an expectation that you are flawless. And in my YouTube channel, I'm going to start working on putting out more content that isn't necessarily me being a licensed professional to help you through your problems, but at a minimum, go speak with veterans and other people who have issues that they're working through, and we'll find a way to handle this, because your life isn't worth the job you're doing. I understand that for this gentleman, if he had said something, he would have been removed off of active guard duty and he would have lost his income. That's why he never said anything, and it led to him taking his own life. So that's kind of where I'm trying to drive. It won't be a mainstay of my YouTube channel, but after that, I said enough is enough. And as a leader in the military, I need to do something. I can't have my soldiers killing themselves because they think no one's going to help them. So at the end of the day, it's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to get help.
There's a couple of resources, and let's throw that out here right now. There's a new suicide crisis hotline, and it's the same thing as the 911 system. It's 988, and dial 988, and you will be able to be connected immediately with resources and help. There is another system that's just come through, and it's seity.org, SEITY.org, and it is specializing in trauma, PTSD, anxiety, depression, self-esteem, marital, premarital, LGBTQ problems that you may or may not be having, but they're the resources that are available. And Casey kind of nailed it on the head. Being able to speak to somebody in person, going to like a one-on-one counseling session, particularly for veterans who are working through the VA, it's difficult. It's very difficult. However, the level of online resources and the number of peer-to-peer resources that are available to anyone that is having any type of trauma or any type of crisis, and you may not necessarily want to speak to your employer, there are resources that are available to you. 988 is not exactly last resort, but it's up there. The Seity app is something that my school district is using, and it's a way to work for mental health and to kind of work through your own resilience and to develop resilience. There are a number of others that are available. So please, if you're having any type of crisis or you're going through these types of questions, these types of feelings, there are resources that are available to you. If you want to reach out to us here at the Spring Bar, we can point you to those right places. And there's a ton of availability. There's a ton of resources, and we would love to be able to help.
Yeah, and I think Casey kind of hit the nail on the head with it's okay to be vulnerable. And I think the biggest thing that leads to people going down this path is they're afraid to admit that there's something going on that's leading them to have these thoughts or feel this way. And mental health is no different than your regular health. You go to the doctor because you got a cough or a sniffle. I mean, you're not embarrassed to go because of that. Mental health should be the same way. It's health. It's just health that deals with the mind. There's no different than health for a broken hand or health for back pain or anything like that. So we kind of got to get that negative stigma out of mental health and get people into going, not even for when something goes wrong, but I mean, it's always good to go and have a conversation with somebody who's unbiased in your life about things. So
always.
Yeah,
always. So
yeah, I mean, and as far as men go, and I'm as guilty as the next guy. I want to be the toughest son of a gun around, but there's nothing tougher in being able to acknowledge a weakness and then working to patch that up. So if you need help, go get it.
Hey,
Yeah.
we're all the Watch fam, right? We're
Right.
all here for everybody. So, all
Mike,
right.
how can they find us?
I mean, how do you follow up with something like that?
Poorly.
I hope I don't get blown away by a hurricane in the next couple of days. That's really my last call.
Well, hey, if you do, maybe the National Guard will be out there and find your body. I'll say a prayer for you.
Yeah, the National Guard will find my bulvas that are blown all over Central Florida.
Oh, actually, hang on. That's a good
Ibs.
point. Let me see if I can get put on that mission.
Yeah, there you go.
Oh, look at these jet stars I just randomly found.
Bridges are going to be necessary.
Yeah,
Look at KC building bridges as we
there
talk.
you go. JP, last call.
Nothing to add, guys. Thank you. That was
Oh.
really nicely done.
Well, hey, we glad to have you back with us again.
Thank you, Sam. That was a
It's-
lot of fun.
Fun.
You look good in
Fun
the
as
sports
always.
coat, sir.
Yeah,
You look
Well,
good.
thank you, sir.
yeah. Thank you, Joe. I appreciate it.
I wasn't talking to you, Lincoln boy.
One of the nicest things you've never said about me. All right, gentlemen. Anything else to add?
How they find us, Mike?
So, Joe, this evening, you, KC, JP, and myself, we make up the Spring Bar Podcast. You can find us on Instagram at the Spring Bar Podcast. You can email us, springbarpodcast@gmail.com. On a personal level, I am 120 clicks, all spelled out, one long word, 120 clicks. Joe.
I am Watch Taylor Youth at Instagram and a variety of other places. KC.
I am now time.hack1636. Please give me a follow because I'm starving for that gratification and I had to restart my account, which sucks.
Like and subscribe.
Like
There
and
you
subscribe. And then JP, you've got a variety of different ways to contact you.
Oh
Throw them.
yeah, I'm easy to find. So I'm on Instagram as at Ghost and Crown. I'm also at ghostandcrown.com, where we offer watch news and reviews, as well as help finding your perfect timepiece.
And you can also find JP on thetimebum.com where he does what? What's it?
Thank you.
Free.
Yes, you can.
Rats.
All right. Well, gentlemen, until the next episode where we say too much about things nobody cares about. Cheers.